I think the thing I enjoyed the most was when I was on the Lord's ground staff. Um, I was more interested in playing than watching in the younger days. Um, but on the Lord's ground staff, watching Bob Massey take 16 wickets at Lord's, I always remember that. So I sat on the outfield because in those days, as you remember, Yossi, because you're almost as old as me, if not older, but you got the oval and you used to have it roped and spectators were allowed to sit on the grass. Yeah, nowadays, of course, that's gone because of health and safety. But yeah, no, that was really probably the most distinctive memory, yeah, where I can actually sit back and think, yeah, I can remember almost every delivery virtually.
How interesting. So, in a way, it would have inspired you to. I mean, you were, obviously you swung the ball as much as Massey. I mean, maybe that had an effect on you.
I enjoyed what I saw. I mean, DK Lilly was charging in at the other end. Tangles was playing, etc. But no, just Massey was remarkable, and he went from over the wicket, around the wicket, in swing, out swing, and I don't think anyone expected it first and foremost to swing that much. But that those are the old cricket balls before they start tampering with the central part of the ball, the core, going from round to square or the other way around. I forget which way it was, but yeah, no, it was. Get rid of that, wherever that is. No, it's yeah, I can remember it really well, and the atmosphere and the buzz, and good catching as well, sit fielding. Yeah, it was great. It was a great display. Amazingly, he didn't really repeat it after that.
No. Well, there were all sorts of rumours actually that he'd kind of got used something on the ball, hadn't there? I know Greggy went around saying that.
But oh, really? What a surprise!
but interestingly, I mean, I remember watching you when you first came into Test cricket, and you were so inspiring because you wanted to bowl outswingers, in swingers, slower balls, bouncers. I mean, in a sense, it feels as if Massey, the way he bowled, had even if it was an accidental influence on you, it was an influence perhaps.
I think the swinging was, and I think the length that he bowled was interesting. He kept it right up there. He was quite happy to concede the odd four, and it was only the odd four getting driven. But if you're a swing bowler, if you don't actually get the ball up there swinging, you're not going to get too many nicks. So you have to, if I go for 2 4s and over and pick a wicket up, I'm quite happy. I'd love to get all my wickets eight runs. So I was quite happy to pitch it up and give it a chance. And I think that's to learn. I don't think Bob Massey bowled one single bouncer. I don't remember, and I know he didn't actually. I'd have remembered it, but it just wasn't the way he bowled. He just happy to keep it up there. Whereas I like to bowl the odd bouncer to keep the batsman not quite so seeing the 6 studs coming down the wicket at me. I don't want to see him have to think about it. Is it going to come around my ears, or can I get on the front foot? So that was my thinking. The slower balls really came in a bit later.
And you were quicker than Massey anyway. So you had the ability to obviously to rough a batsman up. How would you describe when you sort of first came into the England team, sort of late 70s? How would you describe yourself as a cricketer?
Basically an instinctive cricketer, which I probably was for most of my career, to be honest. I didn't go in with any plans. I went out there to bowl or bat or field, and that was the other thing. I love fielding, and eventually I spent most of my life at second slip or first slip to the spinners. I think I went out there and just wanted to play cricket. I didn't have any preconceived ideas.
And let's just boil it down a bit. Bowling first. So, what was your objective as a bowler overall? Did you seek to bowl as fast as possible? Did you want to, do lots of different things with the ball? Did you want to put the batsman under pressure? What was your overall philosophy?
Well, I learned a lot from watching Dennis Lilly, and I've got a great time. Nothing but admiration for the man. I think he was one of the best that's ever lived. But what I did notice with him was he adapted to the surface, and he worked it out very quickly. So I always remember the old MCG. He would always run in and bowl more cutters, and that he didn't bowl. He bowled the odd quick ball, gave it everything with the odd ball. But most of the deliveries, he was actually trying to work the ball, and so which is not something fast bowlers usually do. They just run in and bowl fast and do it very effectively. And if he was playing in Perth or Law, most of the English wickets actually went through quicker than the MCG in those days, and the MCG. But he found a way, and I was interested in watching that cutters, leg cutters, across the seam, which I first saw from Andy Roberts. That was a very effective way of getting a bit of variation with a bouncer. So yeah, I was in a learning process. I suppose that's the way to put it at that early stage.
And who would you have learned the most from? Would you say?
Well, Tom Cartwright spent a lot of time with me. A different kind of bowler, totally different bowler, but it was more mental. And of course Brian Close. It was a fantastic captain, just what we needed at that stage of our careers. Myself and Viv grew up with Brian as closely as our skipper for the first few years, and that set us up really well.
Batting wise, then, so you've described yourself as Lily having a sort of big influence on you as a bowler. What about batting? Who was your influence as a batsman, and what did you set out to do, sort of overall, with the bat?
At that age, my batting hero for England, this is going to surprise you, was Ken Barrington. And I was lucky enough then to spend some great years with Kenny, either as manager, assistant manager, coach, whatever, on England tours. And I used to play golf a lot with him, and I found him a great guy. And the one thing that always impressed me with him, and I never heard him say, "in my day." It was all about us. It was all about the team and all about where we can help and go forward, etc. And so Kenny and I were close, very close, same birthday. Yeah, we used to exchange, the families used to exchange cards, whether Kenny and I might have been in Pakistan, India, or wherever. And we still got the cards somehow. But Kenny was actually my hero. I just liked the way he almost wore the Union Jack on his chest. When he played, he gutsed it out. And he gave it back a bit. I always remember him running past, I think it was Charlie Griffith, who'd hurled a bouncer down at him, and he ran past him and just gave him a little dig with the bat handle as he went past in the ribs, and just said, "We can both play that game." But I got on really well with Kenny. So initially Kenny, and then I played a lot with Viv. And I liked the way that he dominated and went to dominate the bowlers, and that rubbed off on me as well.
Wow. I mean, what an influence. That's the perfect batter, really. The combination of Barrington and Richards. Yeah. Okay. First Ashes test, first Ashes test, same thing. Can you recall that feeling sort of more special because it was Ashes, or was it just a test match at that point?
Oh, I wouldn't have mattered if I was playing against the Eskimos. I'd have been quite happy. First test match is your first test match. It happened to be Australia. It happened to be at Trent Bridge. I was actually quite nervous. I got into the dressing room and I went and sat down. I got there, as you can imagine, you were quite enthusiastic, so you got there a bit earlier than normal. And I sort of took my bag up to the dressing room and threw it down. Then I had to move it a couple of times because that was someone else's spot when they arrived. So that was fine with me. Because I did exactly the same later on in my career. I got in, and I had Mike Hendrick and Bob Willis around me. I always remember that. And it was a great start to my career. As I walked out to the nets, which I hate, as you know, but I went out wandering towards the nets to do the right thing. And Bob Willis ran up behind me, put his arm around me and said, "Enjoy it. You're going to have a great time. You're going to be a great test cricketer." And that was the start of our really close friendship. As you know, we became very close, and I miss him immensely. Just the humour, the friendship, and also the wisdom. He talked more sense about cricket than the whole of the ECB put together. So fantastic, great brain, great cricket brain. I just remembered that, and we went out and picked up 5 wickets. That made it a lot easier. And that was where the ball started to roll.
I suppose in a way it's quite an important start because it would have made you, everybody says, the first time they actually make an impact in a test match, whether it's with the bat or the ball, kind of convinces you that you belong in that environment.
I felt at home. I really did. I think the elevation. I love going back to Somerset. Always went back, never missed a game. I think they gave me one game off. They insisted on it. It was a hard summer, and they just said, "No, you're having this game off." And I said, "All right, okay." But what did I do? I was down at the ground all day. I played golf in the mornings, and then wandered down to the ground about lunchtime and watched it. So I was always involved with it, and I loved my time at Somerset. It was a great trip to be on because we hadn't won anything for 104 years or whatever it was, and to share a house with Viv for 10 or 12 years, whatever it was, down in Taunton. And we grew up together. So with Joel Big Bird there as well, and Alan Mosley, and we had a great side, and I enjoyed that as much as I did the England success. So I mean, the guys nowadays, I think, hardly know what it's like to play county cricket. If you get one game out of them, you've done well, maybe two, but that's the way it is, rightly or wrongly. But I used to enjoy it. I obviously enjoyed driving up, and everyone used to pull into a lay-by, because the way you found out if you were playing for England, you pulled into a lay-by at midday, or five to midday, and then you put the radio on and you waited until this is the England team for the next test at Leeds or wherever, and that's how you found out. There was no other communication, so you either left the car park or the lay-by distressed or delighted. So luckily I didn't have any distress, which was a bonus, but a lot of guys did. So
just one more thing on Bob. Obviously you were one of the greatest pairs of bowlers that have played for England. What was he like to play with? I mean, why did you work as a pair?
Well, basically, I did as I was told. He decided where he's going to bowl from. At the start of the career, when we teamed up first off, he always had choice. By the end of it, it wasn't quite that easy for him. But I always remember at Headingley, where I bowled down the slope and he came up, and he said after I think Australia were 50 for one, chasing 130, and he just turned around to Breers and said, "Breers, mate, any chance of me coming down the hill with the wind and get someone else bowling this end?" And of course, 15 and a half overs later, he had 8 for 43, and the game was won.
So were there times, I mean, I asked Breers this actually, and he said, well, you'd quite often open the bowling together, take the new ball, but then perhaps come, rather than bowling together later, it would often be, you perhaps want to both have the wind. So you tend to both bowl at the same end alternately or something.
Yeah. We did. We really, apart from probably at the start of the game, the rest of the game we were bowled individually so we'd have someone else at the other end, Chris Old, Mike Hendrick, John Embry, Phil Edmonds. There was always someone operating at the other end. So I think that was a deliberate tactic by Breers. He fancied that, and it worked.
And just describe why Willis was such a good bowler.
Well, he was underrated, I think, by most people, particularly the people in the UK. Australians admired him. You had that loopy run up. He came in and he looked like he was whipping a horse over the Grand National fences. But he came in, but he was genuinely quick, hostile, and because of his height, second slip always went a couple of yards deeper for him because of that extra bounce. He was exceptional, and he had great stamina. He was plagued with injuries. His knees, everyone forgets he almost died on the operating theatre with a thrombosis. He got through that pain barrier, and the knee operations aren't like they are today. It looked a bit like spaghetti junction around his left knee, with the scars and what have you. So, he was great. He was great fun on and off the pitch. When he was bowling well, you didn't go and talk to him, left him. He didn't want to talk anyway. So he just, the eyes went steely black, and off he went, and back of the run up, and he freaked out the Aussies at Headingley. Yeah. So.
Well, let's just go to that. Sorry to recap your old ground again, but just tell the stories of the 3 tests. So you played at Lords. Obviously, you didn't have a good game there. What was the feeling at the end of that test in your head, the Lord's test of 81?
Well, I only got one pair in my life, and that was it. And that was because I went out to try and smash a few quick runs because we wanted. It was a dead game, and I thought we'd give ourselves a bit of a chance if we get it safely on draw, but see if we can just knock over some of their batsmen. Just a confidence thing for the batsmen and against the batsmen and for the bowlers. So that was my thinking, and we got in, and I had that. The members almost, did the next in turning the other way, and it was quite. I thought, well, screw you lot, and that was how I felt at the time. Went up to the dressing room, and we went out, and the end of the game came, and what people don't realise is that Alec Bedser had decided in his infinite wisdom that he was going to give me no more than one test at a time. So there's no continuity for me.
As captain.
There's no continuity for me, no continuity for the players, the wives, the families. It was intolerable, to be honest. It was terrible. And I came off the field, went after shaking the Australian hands, whatever, up to the dressing room, and I called the chairman over, and I made my mind up probably halfway through that last session. And I called him up and I said, can you slip into the dressing room? He did. I went out the back at Lord's, the showers, etc. there, and I just said, look, this isn't working for me. It's not working for the team. And it's not working, to be honest with you, for anybody. This ridiculous situation you put me in, one game at a time. We just come back from the West Indies and I lost 1-0 and 2-0 in 10 matches. Not 5-0, 5-0, 5-0. Anyway, I said to him, I'm resigning. He said, okay, fine. And then I went into the dressing room, told all the boys, got them round and said, this is what I've done. And I always remember Gucci wrote me a letter, handwritten letter, thanking me and what have you, etc., and wishing me well. And I thought it was a terrible situation to be in. And as I was telling the team up on the television in the corner, there came the chairman and being interviewed, and they said, we understand that the captain's resigned. He said, yes, he has, but I was going to sack him anyway. That's what I was dealing with. So to be honest with you, I was actually, that was almost, I suppose, in some ways, released me. And they said to me, who do you should captain? I said, Mike Brearley. And true enough, they've got Breers in, and the rest, as they say, is history.
So it was a suggestion of you, because Breers says that various people were considered, but you obviously made that suggestion.
Yeah, I made it straight away. The first interview I did after resigning, I was asked the question, and I said Mike Brearley. And Breers came in. He rang me up and said, "Do you want to play?" Then he saw me at the nets. Well, not in the nets. We're walking around the nets at Headingley, and he came up to me and said, "Do you sure you want to play?" And I said, "Of course I want to play." And of course, the other thing is that people don't realise Bob Willis wasn't picked for that game initially. And then he spoke to Bob, and Bob said, "No, I'm not playing because I'm trying to get my run-up sorted out and everything, because Headingley's a bit different with the slope." And he said, "I'm getting that right." And so Breers said, you want to play? Because he'd bowled a shed load of no balls in the previous test. And he said, "Yeah, I'm right. I'm ready." So Breers said, "Okay, you're playing." And then he told the selectors. And Breers, very difficult to argue with Breers.
What was it about? So that test match, I mean, people obviously remember your 149 not out, but what they might forget or overlook is the fact that you made a 50 in the first innings, and I think you got 6 wickets, didn't you, as well? So yeah. What was it that turned that around? Was it Brearley's influence, and if so, how did that help?
I think it was a combination, really. I felt better in myself. I felt more comfortable at home. I wasn't getting phone calls left, right, and centre anymore. Interviews left, right, and centre. So I was quite happy to see all that, or put that aside for a while. And then I just think the way the team rallied round, we were all back together. There wasn't any fractions. Not that there really was anyway, to be honest. That was something else, a bit of a myth. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed playing cricket. I always have enjoyed playing cricket. But now I felt like I've been let loose and go and express myself. And as I say, it was just everything went on from there. It was fantastic.
And Briers says that he encouraged you to just play your natural game with the bat. Was that how it felt to you?
I was always going to play that way. As I said to Briers, I don't play any other way. I'm going to go out there, and when you play on a wicket like that at Headingley, and it did a bit, particularly as the game went on. We didn't bowl particularly well in the first innings collectively, and I think they got 400, if I remember rightly. Tyson got a big score, and then we got rolled out, and then we followed on. And I just decided in the second innings, well, okay, I got some runs in the first, so I felt good. First innings, but second innings, I just felt, look, if it's there in the slot, go for it hard. Because if you do nick it, hopefully it'll fly the slips into the boundary, which you did on quite a few occasions. And then you middle a few, and then Graham Dilley wandered out and played like Graham Pollock, and just stood there and smashed it and got his highest score, and that is only 50 in Test cricket. And so the writing was sort of on the wall a bit as the wicket was going. And I actually felt when we came off the field on the fourth night, I actually felt we can win this. And I wasn't the only one. There's a few of the boys said, we get some early wickets. Well, we didn't get early wickets. They were 50 for one. And then Bob. And in he came. And there was some great fielding. Graham Diddy took a great catch off Rod Marsh, top-edged hook, going backwards. Gatt caught a couple of very good catches at short leg and at mid-on. And the slips backed up the bowlers.
You took an absolute corker at second or third slip yourself, actually. One-handed, I think.
Yeah, it was off Bob, so I dared drop it.
And just compare the feeling of your 149 not out. So you walk off the field with England suddenly with a lead of 130. So, what was that feeling like?
As I said, we felt we could win. Exactly, we felt we could win this game, and we said, well, let's make the new ball count. We got one wicket. I think I got Graham Wood caught behind, and that was the one wicket. And then we had another wicket. Bob came back in the attack, and I think it went down 2 down. I think at lunch, maybe 3, but it was Bob's performance was surreal. It was unbelievable, and I suppose the writing. I got runs. And he hadn't bowled very well, so the two of us came together, him with the ball, me with the bat, and I think we both enjoyed it. One of the great things about playing Test cricket when we played, you played proper Test cricket, as I call it. You played Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Then the two teams usually got together on a Saturday night, and you'd have a few drinks. And we did that at Headingley, and we had a marquee up at home, and the Australian team came to the barbecue. And we had a scrum down quite late on, which was traditional. And we beat the Aussies at the scrum down. And I'm convinced that was the start of their dramatic failure in that Ashes series. We did have Gatt in the front row. Well, actually, he was the front row. But no, we were in there. It was great fun, great team spirit. And that's the kind of thing that's gone out of the game. The sad thing is, and this is what people are, we didn't get a chance to celebrate the team that night because I had to get in the car and drive to Taunton for a quarter-final against Kent, I think it was, in the Gillette, and other guys had to go in all different directions. So we never really actually had a team celebration, which nowadays, of course, you'd enjoy it. But no, we didn't. So I had a couple of drinks. Viv was waiting for me when I got back. And we had a couple of drinks, celebrated, got a nice bottle of red, I think it was, and then went to bed. And that was it. That was my celebration. Quite what I've ever had in my life.
Well, you've made up for it since. Do you think? Do you think at the time it almost didn't dawn on you what a kind of sensational? Because I mean, it was the first time a team had won following on for about 100 years or something. I mean, do you think it dawned on you the magnitude of what he'd achieved?
Well, look, I think that the response from the public was quite amazing. But if you remember, in 1981, there was all kinds of strife in the UK. There were strikes, there was the miners, there was all sorts going on. And I think we actually, that game, I think, was what the country needed, in a way, a big lift. Uh, we didn't have time to celebrate or for it to sink in. We just got in our cars and went. And from Leeds in those days back to Taunton, it was a 4-hour drive, 3.5, 4-hour drive. The roads weren't as they are now. I think the M5 wasn't completed down that far. We had to come off and go down the A38 and what have you, and 303 or whatever it was. No, 38. But no, it probably sort of sank in at the end of the series, because we hammered them after that, and we got the lift, and they crashed and burned. I think to 130, they felt they should have cruised that. We thought they were going to cruise it at one stage, but we felt we were always in with a chance on that pitch.
Perhaps because you, I mean, I don't want to put words into your mouth here, but you got the 149 odd out, you got a 50 in the first inning, so that's a pretty good double. Plus, you got the 6-fer, and you got Bob Willis, your great mate, 8-fer. Do you think that is your proudest moment as a match, as a performance?
I think under the circumstances, probably, yeah. I mean, we had a great series. I mean, Old Trafford, Birmingham, the Bull Ring. They certainly were intimidated in that game. Another low score to chase, 150, I think it was.
Yeah. So just to recap on that, I mean, you came out after lunch. They needed 160 or not many, and they were 4 down, like 100 for 4 or something like that, 100 for 3. And I think you said to Briers, "Can I come out?" It's the spinners were bowling, and you said, "Can I come out in my flats?"
I did, yeah, and I did wear my flats. And then he said, "I think it's time for you to go and get your boots on." I said, "Well, let's just give Embers another over." And of course, he got Border out in that next over, caught by Gatt at short leg. And then before he looked round, I was already off the field, getting the boots put on. I sprinted off, and I got the boots on and came out. And then it was the first time I encountered reverse swing as a bowler. I came in and I had the normal orthodox shiny side, duller side. The ball was quite a few overs old by then. It was a very dry wicket, so I was actually whinging about it getting scuffed up, and I was trying to polish the one side, and I was holding it for the outswing, and suddenly it went boom, dipped in. I thought, oh, hang on, what's going on here? And then another one went that way, and I got a wicket with it going in that way. So I thought, well, hang on, if it goes that way, what about if I switch it? So I switched it, and I got it to go that way, and I found that was the first time I encountered reverse swing, legal reverse swing, and it was great. It was absolutely fantastic, and suddenly new dimension, and and I bowled fuller and fuller to get it right up there, and 5 for 1.
Brilliant story, actually. Never heard that before.
Yeah, it's true. I suddenly reversed, and I had no idea what I was doing, so I just experimented, and then I got it, and it going that way, and that became probably the more dominant ball. If you think of Wacker, when Wacker was reversing it, it always tended to go in late, and that was the easier ball to bowl. And then you develop the other one going away, or just going straight after that is effective. So yeah, it was an interesting time, and it did a little bit in the next test at Old Trafford, but not as much as it did at the Bull Ring.
And at Old Trafford, obviously your innings is memorable there. A lot of people feeling that perhaps that was your most sort of I don't know, classic, whatever, I don't know, but perhaps your most authentic innings, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I went in, I got out first ball, first innings. So I sat up there, and then we went out to bat, and Tav was in when I got out there, and Tav outscored me for the first hour, and comfortably. And I love batting with Tav. He never got the recognition he deserved. I think he should have played more Test cricket and certainly more one-day cricket. because he was a fantastic one-day player, and you'd have seen that when you played against him. You know, he goes one of the first guys that stepped into the leg to go over extra cover, and all this kind of stuff. And he was very, very good at it. And anyway, I was out there with Tav, and we just, I just said, I'm going to play, and we'll just play now, settle in. And we had about, I don't know, 12, 15 overs to the new ball, something like that. Maybe not that many, I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, played, knocked it around. He outscored me comfortably, and then the new ball came. And then in my head, it's new ball on a wicket like this. It's pretty dead, and I thought, well, it's time to attack, because the red ball, the hard ball will go further. When you have the softer ball, it doesn't go so far, and it came off. It came off, and the ball flew. Probably some of the cleanest hitting, consistent hitting in one innings for me, anyway, certainly. And Tav was merrily going along the other end, and basically feeding me the strike, which was great. And Dennis DK came in and bouncing, and that put him into the railway station. I enjoyed that one. I do remind him of that when I see him. But no, we had a great. I had some great contests with him, but that was I definitely won that day. He got me out, I think, first innings for North. I think he was bowling, probably, and yeah, it was a great contest. Smashed one back at him over his head, and he ducked, which I thought was quite amusing. But no, it was great. And the other thing about that game was the first time we really saw Alan Border in action. Now, in the first innings, I hit AB on the hand, and it's quite a nasty break at the top here, the top of the joint here. So it's not very comfortable, very hard. And crack breaks down the bottom half of the finger are doable. But the ones at the top are different things, the jarring and the battering. And he batted on and got runs, and then came out in the second innings, and he obviously was still in great pain. Well, he will be. It's not going to heal in 48 hours or whatever it was. And I hit him on the same spot very early in the innings, and he squealed and jumped around. He gutsed it out and got 130 not out, something like that. And that's the first time I saw Border. And since that day, I have nothing but great admiration for him. And I think he was the best captain I think Australia have had, if ever, not ever. Some will say, oh, we have to go back to Bodyline, and you have the Ben O series, etc. What Border did was quite remarkable. He actually, Australia were at their lowest ebb, and he actually brought them back. He was ruthless and tough, but he got Australia back on track and made it very easy for the captains that followed him. And they're great captains they were, Ricky Ponting towards the end. But, initially you had Mark Taylor, Steve Waugh, Ricky Ponting, all these long-term captains. But the Border had set it up. And quite rightly, there's a statue now, a bronze statue outside the Gabba of the man himself. But had some great battles with him over the years. Fantastic cricketer. But that's the first time I really saw how good he was and how gutsy he was.
Yeah, first innings, Botham caught Bright, bowled Lily Naught. Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I delete those normally from the memory bank, but yeah.
And then the final innings, 402 all out. Actually, Australia did pretty well, 402. Yeah, as you say, Border undefeated. And you and Bob took the last 2 wickets, which clinched the Ashes.
Yeah, and again, no celebration. We had to disperse to different corners of the UK, but we did have a little bit of celebration at the Oval after the game, because we won the series and the Ashes. But no, that Old Trafford's great atmosphere. The support we got from the crowds, particularly at Birmingham and Manchester, were amazing. And certainly at Birmingham, the crowd intimidated the Australian batsmen. When they came out, their eyes were rolling, because the crescendo of noise, you started your run up and it just got louder and louder and louder and louder. And they definitely had an effect on the Aussies. And Old Trafford, it was a pretty flat wicket, high scoring game. Yeah, it was, but it was a good victory on that wicket.
Very good. So you won the Ashes. I mean, you're obviously you've had this sort of, I don't know, is it a psychological hold over Australia? But you always seem to turn on turn on the performances, particularly against them. Did you feel when you played Australia generally, especially after that series, that you kind of had just had something psychological, a psychological influence over them?
I don't think so. I think they brought the best out of me because of the respect I had for them. The West Indians were probably the best side that's ever played the game. That side in that period from sort of late 70s through to the late 90s, they were magnificent. And in my book, the best side that's ever played Test cricket. But something about the Australians, uh, the connection between the two countries. We fought toe to toe and in wars. And my father always said to me when he was in the Navy, he said he had a couple of close encounters, but he in Singapore. But he actually said to me, he said, if you're ever in trouble, make sure you got an Aussie next to you. And I thought, well, hang on, that's an interesting. And I always remember that from way back, years before any of this happened. And no, I have great respect. When you think of Australia, is what there's more people inside the M25 than there is the whole of Australia. And for them to have won the World Cups, they've won hockey, men's and women's, netball, cricket, rugby, you name it. They've won all these World Cups, and they are a sporting nation. And as in my position now as trade envoy, I get over there quite a bit, and I love it. I love going there, and then I always go for a holiday towards the end of before the summer, before spring over here. Excuse me. And no, it's yeah, special. I respect the way they play, the toughness, and you play hard on the pitch, but you sit down and have a beer afterwards, or just whatever you want, cup of tea, whatever. And you go in there and you sit down and chat with them. The great thing was we didn't need match referees in those days, because if there was a problem, it was sorted out in the dressing room. End of story. Face to face, what was that all about? Okay, let's look at that. Bang, on you get with it. So that, I think it's a combination of that, and also the Australian crowd. I used to love winding them up. Walking out to bat the MCG carrying the cannonball and chain. Or giving them this one when I got a wicket. But they'll cross hand. But going back to the days, but the convicts, etc. But I just love the Australian crowd, and I think they had a respect for me because of the way I played the game. And I get on very well in Australia. I love it. I have to say, I could easily spend a lot of time there.
In fact, at the time, during your career, it was often said that they wished you were Australian and that you could play for them.
Well, the highest compliment you'll ever get from an Australian is when they say you're more Australian than you are a Pom. I just took that as a compliment. I didn't play on it or really take much notice of it, but it's always logged in there, and I thought, okay, and it still goes on now.
And I think
I'm going to stay English, don't worry. But yeah.
But you're going to stay English. But I suppose also what they love about you is you're winning. You want to win, don't you?
Oh yeah, every time, everything I do. But I think that's how you should play sport, isn't it? What's the point in playing sport if you don't want to win it? And that's my attitude. And win at all costs within the boundaries of the game. And push it. You push it hard. You push yourself hard. And you expect the same from your teammates. You've got to have that drive and enthusiasm.
But I think that you, I found playing with you that you cut it you made it very simple. We would be sitting there thinking, who are we playing against? Oh dear, this person, that person. And you just said, look, no, actually, if we do our job, they can't do theirs. And it was a very sort of uplifting approach.
Why big up the opposition? a bit different with the West Indies in the pomp when they were getting bowled out. And they were winning comfortably all around the world. But England Australia is just different. It's the oldest contest in cricket. I believe that's right. You'll probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that it is the longest, and that's what it's all about: the history, the Ashes. Look at the games over the body line. All the stuff that we've had over the years, England, Australia, and that's never going to go away. That's history, and it's wonderful. It was wonderful to be part of it, to be honest.
Your foundation, it's 10 years, isn't it, to the anniversary of your launch?
Yes, the anniversary this year.
Tell us about that a bit.
Well, the foundation was started 10 years ago, believe it or not. That's why it's the 10th anniversary. But no, it's something that we do as a family, and particularly the walks we did early on. We did 19 of those. I think with the training we worked out, it's probably around 10,500 miles. And that's about the equivalent of London to Sydney. So, but I have paid for it. I've had a lot of surgery in the last 4 years. I've had a rebuilt spine. I've had right hip, left hip, and I'm recovering. Actually, I've recovered. And then the final lot was my left knee total replacement. Touch wood, the right knee's still going strong. But I wouldn't change any of that. I think the hips were probably from the walks. I think the knees definitely from cricket, and a little bit of football in my younger days. But no, it's fun to do. It's nice to give something back. And because of the success as a sportsman, gave me the springboard to then take it to another level for other people. And I get a great kick out of it now. When we did one of the last walks, I always remember this moment because this lad walked up, or young man walked up with two little kids with him, and he came up and said to me, he said, "You won't remember me." And he shows a photograph of him about this high, being pushed by a nurse in a buggy, and he was a leukemia sufferer. And he said, "I've fully recovered. Many thanks to you, and meet my two children." And that kind of thing makes it all worthwhile. It really does.
Lovely. England now captained by Stokes, who is, the reincarnation of Botham in some ways. What do you think about what he's done, and what are the prospects?
Well, first and foremost, I was right-handed, he's left-handed. So, I think what he and Brendan McCullum have brought to the game is magnificent. Test cricket needed an injection. And more importantly, we need to look after the red ball game. It's not about white ball cricket all day long, which is not going to survive. People will get bored with it eventually. But Test cricket, you remember the Test players. Bradman, go all the way back to Bradman. Before that, Hobbs and all these people. And you go through history, you'll remember the Test players. I don't think you'll remember too many players that won the IPL, or too many players that won the Big Bash, or the T20 over here, or the 100. They're great. They're magnificent games, and they've helped finance the world of cricket when we needed financing. But we must not lose the red ball game. Lose the red ball game and we lose cricket as we know it. Test cricket has to be protected. And the best way of protecting it is to make people come and watch it. And that's what these two will do.
So you'll be watching then, I take it?
I'll be there, and especially the Ashes. Of course I'll be there. Wild horses wouldn't keep me away from that.
Thank you very much. Excellent. And by the way, I am younger than you, but you've got more energy than me.
And hair.
And hair, yeah, true.
They're looking for that, let alone chasing it. It's gone straight into the confectionery stall and out again.